5 True-Style Haunted House Stories from San Bernardino, California. Story 1, The Girl in the Fog. Location, Highland Avenue, San Bernardino, 2020. Welcome to Nick's Scary Stories. Tonight, we're headed to San Bernardino, California, a place surrounded by mountains, long stretches of highway, and more forgotten homes than you'd imagine. These are 5 stories shared by locals who experienced something they still can't explain, and probably never will. Our first tale comes from a man who moved into a hillside home with a strange view, and saw something step out of the morning fog that would change his life forever. In 2020, I moved into a rental on Highland Avenue in the north end of San Bernardino. The house sat up on a hill, overlooking the city. Quiet. Secluded. Just trees, fog, and silence in every direction. The landlord said the previous tenant had left in a hurry. Didn't leave a forwarding address. Probably a job transfer, she said. I didn't ask questions. The place was cheap. The first few weeks were peaceful. Mornings were foggy, real thick stuff, like you couldn't see 5 feet past your front steps. But I got used to it. Then, one morning, I saw something in the fog. A girl. Standing motionless at the edge of my yard. She wore a long white dress and had dark hair hanging over her face. She was barefoot, facing the house. I stood frozen at the window, staring out. Then she turned and walked away, not toward the street, but into the trees at the back of the property. I ran outside, but she was gone. The next morning, same thing. Same time. Same fog. Same girl. This time, she was closer. I called out, "Are you okay?" She didn't respond. Just turned, and walked into the trees again. I told myself it was a neighbor's kid. Maybe someone from down the hill. But when I mentioned it to the landlord, her face dropped. "She's back," she whispered. That's when I learned the truth. Years ago, a girl had gone missing from the house next door, wandered off into the hills, never seen again. Police found a trail of bare footprints in the morning dew that led into the trees, and vanished. She was 5 years old. Her name was Clara. The woman who lived in my house before me. She saw her too. Every time the fog rolled in, Clara would appear. And each time, she got a little closer. I stopped opening the blinds in the morning. But the fog found its way in anyway. The air started to smell sweet and rotted, like wet flowers and something dead. I started waking up to condensation inside the house, water droplets on the mirror. On the floors. On the walls. And once, written in the fogged glass of the bathroom window, was the word, "Come." I moved out that week. Left my deposit. Left my things. Left the blinds shut. But sometimes, on foggy mornings, I check the traffic cams near Highland Avenue. And every so often, I see a figure in white. Standing in the trees. Waiting. Story 2, The Wall Behind the Cabinet. Location, downtown San Bernardino, 2016. Welcome back to Nick's Scary Stories. Our second tale takes us into the heart of downtown San Bernardino, where a couple moved into a rundown craftsman home with plans to fix it up. But behind one old kitchen cabinet, they discovered a sealed brick wall, and something behind it that had been trying to get out. In 2016, my sister Danny and her husband Eric bought an old house near 9th Street in downtown San Bernardino. It was one of those pre-war craftsman-style homes, all dark wood beams and creaky floors. Real fixer-upper. They got it for cheap because it had been vacant for almost 7 years. Eric's a handyman, so he was excited to do the work himself. They started in the kitchen, replacing cabinets, ripping up old linoleum. One Saturday afternoon, Eric was removing a tall pantry cabinet next to the back door when he noticed something strange. There was no drywall behind it. Just brick. A full, sealed brick wall, cleanly mortared, smooth, and clearly not part of the original kitchen design. Danny thought it was weird, but they figured it was part of an old fireplace or exterior modification. Until that night. They were asleep when a loud knock woke them. Coming from the kitchen. 3 knocks. Then silence. Eric got up, thinking maybe something had fallen. But when he turned on the kitchen light, everything looked normal. Except the brick wall. It was damp. Almost sweating. The next day, Danny called a local contractor to take a look. The guy was older, been working in the area for decades. When he saw the wall, he went pale. "Where exactly did you say you found this?" he asked. Danny told him. The man said nothing, just packed up and left. That night, it got worse. More knocks. Louder. Angrier. Always from the wall. Danny pressed her ear to the bricks, against Eric's advice, and swore she heard a voice whispering. "Let me back in." They tried to ignore it. Until they started smelling something. Rot. Like sour milk and wet dirt. It filled the kitchen every morning. And always, the brick wall was wet to the touch. One morning, they found something new. Scratches. 3 long, vertical claw marks dug into the bricks. Like something was trying to climb back through. They called the city, trying to get records on the house. After a few days, someone finally responded. In the 1980s, the property was used as a halfway home for troubled teens. One of the boys, about 16 years old, had vanished. Some said he ran away. Others weren't so sure. Rumors started about a basement room. A punishment space. Eventually, the program was shut down. The basement was sealed. And the house sat empty for years. Only one problem. Danny's house didn't have a basement. They tore out the bottom of the cabinet. Behind the brick wall, hidden under layers of old plaster, was a hatch. Eric pried it open. A rotted wooden staircase led into pitch-black silence. They called the police. Inside the room, they found chains. Scribbled drawings. And initials scratched into the floor, over and over. The boy's name. The missing teen. They resealed the hatch that day. Sold the house within the month. The buyers never knew what had been behind the wall. But 3 months after moving in, the new owner posted on the neighborhood forum. "Hey, just curious, does anyone know why the bricks behind our kitchen sweat at night? And has anyone else heard knocking after dark?" Story 3, The Journal That Wrote Itself. Location, Vermont, San Bernardino, 2017. Welcome back to Nick's Scary Stories. Our third story takes us to the Vermont area, a quiet hillside neighborhood in the northern edge of San Bernardino. It's the kind of place where families settle down and neighbors rarely move. But after the death of a reclusive aunt, one woman was asked to clean out her home. And found a journal tucked deep inside a drawer. A journal that started describing things, before they happened. In 2017, my cousin Renee asked me to help her clean out her aunt's house after she passed away. The place was up in Vermont, near the edge of the foothills, a quiet, 2-bedroom house at the end of a cul-de-sac. Her aunt had lived there alone for nearly 30 years. She was a retired librarian. No husband. No kids. No visitors. Just books. Everywhere. Crammed into shelves. Stacked on chairs. Even boxes in the kitchen full of paperbacks, journals, yellowed clippings. It was quiet work at first. Mostly sorting things into keep, donate, and toss. Then, on the second day, I found it. A red leather journal tucked behind the dresser in the guest room. It wasn't dusty. No mold. The pages were crisp. The handwriting was neat, old-fashioned cursive in blue ink. At first, it looked like a normal diary. It started with short entries. June 5th. He stood in the hallway again. Third night in a row. June 6th, knocked on the window at 3:12 a.m. But then it got weirder. June 8th, found the key under the third floorboard. Didn't remember putting it there. The entries weren't dated by year. Just day and month. And they were oddly cold. Clinical. No emotions, just facts. One line made my skin crawl. June 10th. He's learning to move like me now. I showed it to Renee. She laughed at first, thought it was some kind of story her aunt was writing. Until we found the room. In the back of the house, behind a closet in the hallway, was a locked door. We didn't even notice it the first day. It was painted over. Seamless. But when I ran my fingers along the closet wall, I felt the outline. A rectangle. A frame. We found the key in a rusted tin under a loose floorboard in the laundry room, just like the journal said. Inside the room was a single chair facing a full-length mirror. Nothing else. The air was ice cold. Not dusty. Not stale. Just cold. And on the floor, carved into the wood, was a date. June 12th. That day was tomorrow. We went back to the journal. June 12th. The chair won't be empty anymore. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about the entries. How many were written as if they'd already happened? But they hadn't, not yet. I drove back to the house early the next morning. Alone. Renee said she didn't want to go back. Said she had a bad feeling. I stepped inside. The air felt heavier. I walked to the back hallway, opened the closet, and checked the door. It was still locked. But when I turned to leave, I noticed something. The mirror was gone. The chair was still there, but the mirror, the one inside the room, had disappeared. In its place was a wall. Flat. Smooth. Clean drywall, like nothing had ever been mounted. I walked out, heart pounding. That's when I saw it. On the table by the entryway was the journal. Open to a new page. I swear I hadn't opened it. But there it was. A fresh entry, still damp with ink. June 12th. She returned. She saw the wall. Now he can see her too. I didn't take anything. Didn't say goodbye. Just left. 3 nights later, Renee called me. She said someone knocked on her bedroom window at exactly 3:12 a.m. She lives on the second floor. Story 4, she was still on the lease. Location, near SUSP, San Bernardino, 2018. Welcome back to Nick's Scary Stories. Our fourth story comes from a student attending California State University, San Bernardino, a young woman looking for an affordable rental close to campus. What she found was a charming little house with one bedroom left mysteriously unfurnished. The rent was cheap. The contract was simple. The only problem? She wasn't living alone. In the fall of 2018, I started my second year at SUSP and found a private rental off North Park Boulevard, just 10 minutes from campus. The landlord was an older woman named Mrs. Sutton who lived 2 doors down. She said the house had been hers for years, but she started renting it to students once her daughter moved out. It was a 3-bedroom place, fully furnished, except for one room. The front bedroom had no furniture, not even curtains. Just a bare mattress on the floor and a half-empty closet. When I asked about it, Mrs. Sutton smiled and said, "I like to leave that one untouched. For my daughter's memory." I assumed her daughter had moved out suddenly. Maybe passed away. I didn't push. I moved into the room at the back of the house, quiet, shaded, with a view of the yard. Things were fine at first. Then I started hearing movement in the hallway at night. Light footsteps. At first, I thought Mrs. Sutton had come by without telling me. But the doors were locked. Nothing was missing. Nothing had changed. Then I started hearing the sound of drawers opening in the front bedroom. But every time I checked, the door was still closed. One night, around 2 a.m., I heard crying. It wasn't loud, just soft, muffled sobs. Coming from the front room. I opened the door. The air inside was freezing. The window was shut. But the mattress had been pulled away from the wall. And on the wall behind it, were scratch marks. Dozens of them. Long, curved scratches trailing downward, like someone had been clawing at the paint. I closed the door. Didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called Mrs. Sutton. She didn't answer. That evening, I saw her watering plants in her yard. I walked over and asked directly, "What happened to your daughter?" She looked up slowly and said, "She's still on the lease, you know." I didn't understand. Then she added, "I just can't bring myself to sign her name off." I asked, "Is she alive?" Mrs. Sutton smiled, a small, tight-lipped smile. "She's still around. Just, not where you can see." That night, I woke up to the sound of humming. A soft, slow melody, coming from the front room. I stayed in bed, frozen. The next day, I packed a bag and went to stay with a friend. When I returned a few days later to grab the rest of my stuff, something had changed. The front room was open. The mattress was gone. And in its place was a single wooden chair, facing the window. There was a note on the floor. "I still live here. Please don't change anything." I moved out without saying goodbye. But a week later, I got a piece of mail forwarded from that address. It was from the property manager. Some paperwork about utilities. The part that got me was the envelope. It listed 2 names. Mine, and someone named Emily Sutton. Still active. Still registered at that house. And the handwriting on hers was shaky. Almost like it had been written from underground. Story 5, The Well in the Backyard. Location, Del Rosa, San Bernardino, 2015. Welcome back to Nick's Scary Stories. Our final tale takes us to the Del Rosa area. An older part of San Bernardino with winding roads, wide backyards, and quiet streets that feel frozen in time. It's where a family of 3 bought a mid-century home at a great price, until their 6-year-old son started spending all his time outside. By the old stone well. Where something started whispering his name. In 2015, the Vargas family bought a 1-story ranch-style house just off Pacific Street in Del Rosa. It was a foreclosure with overgrown grass, cracked sidewalks, and a rotted fence. But the bones were good, and the price was right. The yard was huge, a rarity in that area. And in the middle of it was an old stone well, covered by a rusted iron grate. The realtor said it hadn't been used in decades, sealed, dry, completely harmless. At first, it was just a strange yard feature. Until their son, Mateo, started talking about the lady in the well. His mom, Eva, thought it was just imagination. 6-year-olds talked to trees, bugs, shadows. But Mateo got obsessed. Every afternoon, he'd sit by the well, legs crossed, whispering down into the grate. "Who are you talking to?" Eva asked once. "The lady," he said. "She's sad." Eva looked inside. The well was pitch black. She figured he'd grow out of it. But things escalated. One night, Mateo woke up screaming. "She said I have to come down there," he cried. "She's lonely." He couldn't describe what she looked like, just that she had long hair, no shoes, and her face was blurry. Eva and her husband decided to seal the grate completely. They bolted it shut, covered it with plywood and bricks. Mateo threw a tantrum the next morning. Tried to tear off the bricks with his hands. Said she was angry now. Said the lady told him, "You're mine." That night, Eva woke to the sound of running water. She followed it to the kitchen. The sink was dry. But in the hallway, muddy footprints led from the back door to Mateo's room. Small, bare feet. She burst inside. He was asleep. Breathing hard. Clutching his blanket. His feet were clean. But on the window beside his bed, a smear of mud in the shape of a handprint. Eva demanded they move. Her husband wasn't convinced. Until he saw it. 2 days later, he was working in the yard when he tripped on something buried under the dirt. It was a stone, flat, rectangular, almost like a marker. He dug it out. Beneath the dirt was an old, weather-worn plaque. Carved into the surface were 4 words. She never climbed out. They contacted the county. According to old records, the land used to be part of a citrus orchard. In 1949, a girl went missing on the property. They never found her. Only her shoes, sitting at the edge of the well. The family moved out the following month. But before they left, Eva walked to the backyard one last time. The bricks were still stacked. The grate still bolted. But she heard it. Soft. Raspy. A voice whispering her name. Eva.